So suggesting an item is on special when it's not. Explain this to us. Is this illegal or is it a marketing tactic?
It certainly is misleading and deceptive conduct, which would amount to a breach of the Australian consumer law. But the problem is we don't seem to have effective oversight of the pricing practices of our regulators. Of our supermarkets. Our regulators can't be everywhere, certainly, but I certainly think there needs to be a step up in the oversight to ensure supermarkets aren't misleading their customers when it comes to specials or other pricing techniques.
Okay, before we go into the role of the regulators, I want to go through another tactic here. And Kath and I were talking about it a little earlier on the show. We're talking about unit prices. Now, some of these supermarkets are not very transparent over their unit prices. Talk to us about how important it is to know what a unit price is and how that actually helps us save money.
Well, unit pricing is a really important tool that empowers shoppers. It allows you to compare products across brands or across product types by, say, per litre or per kilo. And it can really help you save money. Research has shown that unit pricing, when you're using it effectively, can save the average shopper up to $1,600 a year, which is quite astounding. But the problem is the unit price isn't always clear and clearly articulated and labelled. The law at the moment merely says the unit price has to be prominent and legible, but what we see is that the font is very small. And particularly for those with poor eyesight, people with disabilities, older people, it's not clear, and it can mean that it's not well used by those people. What we'd like to see is a reform in this area that puts a minimum font size, really, when it comes to a unit price, makes it bold and clear so people can use it. And can empower themselves when it comes to shopping in a supermarket.
Yeah, and when you're a busy person trying to rush through shopping, you just do not have time to break down the unit price yourself. Now, the ABS says that shrinkflation is a practice that's costing shoppers as well, and that's adding to inflation. What is it? What is shrinkflation?
Well, shrinkflation is really caused not just by the supermarkets, but also the manufacturers behind the products as well, where they reduce the product size, but generally keep the price the same. And yeah, as you say, the Australian Bureau of Statistics has found that this is contributing to the increase in inflation. I think that more needs to be done to address shrinkflation. Overseas, we are seeing some of our regulators, like the Spanish competition regulator, call it out as an unfair method of competition, and requiring those supermarkets to transparently say that the product size is being reduced. You often go to the supermarket and they, boldly say where you're getting extra for a particular product, but they don't tell us very clearly when products are going down in size.
What about marketing costs and loyalty programs? They also add to the costs, don't they?
Absolutely. Every time we go to the supermarket now, there is a wealth of marketing and advertising. There are magazines, there is loyalty programs, there are bonuses to collect different prizes. But these things all cost money. And I think Australians would much prefer cheaper groceries than fancy marketing. I think that does need to be examined by the Senate inquiry, so we're getting the cheapest groceries possible.
All right, so let's look at the role of the regulator then. The ACCC no doubt would have gotten complaints about these various practices. Are they cracking down on them?
Well, the ACCC, I know, has looked into some pricing practices just recently following consumer complaints from the likes of the consumer group Choice. They did force the supermarket Coles to repay people who were misled by false dropped and locked labels when the product hadn't been locked as long as Coles said it would be. But I do think more needs to be done. I would like to see the government give a particular reference to the ACCC to investigate more deeply the pricing practices of the supermarkets. That would enable the regulator to mandatorily obtain information about their pricing practices, their returns, their revenues, to really undertake a deep dive about whether there is price gouging, and to come up with recommendations that might ensure that Australians have more confidence that supermarkets are pricing competitively.
Gerard Brody, great getting your insights on the show this morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Consumer advocate there, Gerard Brody.